Hey, Dave. Thanks for coming by, man. I'm really sorry you didn't get that last gig, all that unpleasantness, but we're ready for the audition. We hope you knock this out of the park. So ready? Go.
This is Gun Cranks.
Okay. Dave, thank you. Good job. We'll call you. Hear ye, hear ye. I call this meeting of the Gun Cranks to order. Thanks for joining us. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. I'm here along with my partners in crime, so to speak, Tom McHale, the editor of American Handgunner, and our former, now retired boss, Roy Huntington. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Brent.
Howdy.
We've got a great show today. We're talking about holster care. We talk about I can't find my red dot. Pretty common problem. And then we're going to discuss why Tom uses lime jello with fruit cocktail in it as a ballistic test medium. So, guys, let's get on with the show and the Gun Cranks. Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
I can't find my red dot.
It's because you can't shoot worth. Never mind. So,
Well,
are we live yet?
No, we're good. No.
I can't find
Seriously,
my red
that
dot.
is the problem. I've just got a couple more. Every gun now, including cannons, come with a red dot. And everybody's going to red dots, and even our friends at Gunsight, they have a red dot base 250. I get that red dots are the future, but to an old dog who has had hundreds of thousands of sight pictures, I still have trouble, putting a TV screen on this thing and putting it on the target. I can put that front sight on there every time, and we've talked about this, but help me, Tom, I can't find my red dot.
I bet you'd have a field day with this one. Look how small that one is.
Yeah.
This is the Leupold Delta Point Pro on a Glock 43X. Or do we say Leopold like the king, or how?
Like Leopold Stokowski, the famous conductor.
Yeah.
Leupold.
Leupold. Yes.
No, but I tell you, I'll share 2 cents, and I brought this show and tell for a specific reason, because it is tiny, and you know what?
Teeny
it works
tiny.
like a champ, and it is so easy to find the dot because you don't look for it.
Because that's a regular one.
You mean?
Yeah.
I'm dead serious about that. Don't look for the dot, and you'll find it. Look for your front
I know,
sight.
that's what they keep telling me.
Do your habit, do your hundreds of thousands of sight pictures habit, and look for the front sight, and guess what? The dot's right there, even in this little tiny low profile one.
Yeah.
There. Is there a mic to drop here somewhere? Mic drop.
That makes for a short episode, doesn't it?
We're done.
Just don't look for it. Boom. We're done.
Well, before all this nonsense started, we were talking with Sherry, our producer, of Oh Holiness, and may she be successful forever. And she had said she was at Gunsight, and there was a particular stage where they involved red dot sights, and it was close. 7 or 10 yards or something like that. And she made it clear that there was a lot of people really struggling, and then in desperation, they basically would just lower the gun and say, I can't find my red dot sight. And of course, like she said, well, then don't use it.
Well, you're allowed to do that in a self-defense encounter. As long as you lower your gun and say time out.
Time out. Yeah.
You can sort it out.
Wait.
So,
Well, I was testing Springfield's new XD 3.8, the 10 millimeter the other day, which this is not it. This is actually Hellcat with one of the little TV sets on. But what I learned...
You guys are killing me.
But what I learned was that I was pretty close to this target when I was shooting it. And there were a few times where, as I brought it up, because, every gun feels a little different. If it's got a red dot, it takes you a little while before you start indexing it correctly. But I kind of stumbled onto a technique that was new to me. I don't know if this is something common, but think about this for a minute. What is this really, other than a TV set? Okay, what is it really? It's the world's hugest
DVD?
aperture sight is what this is. It's the world's hugest aperture sight. And when people shoot handguns, I have a lot of people say they index on the square of the slide, which is common, right? So you kind of look down over the top of the sight, you index on the square of the slide. Glocks are famous for that. They put that little square up, everything's lined up, you can see down the side of the, everything. And then you take your best shot. Well, what I found out was that you can actually use this like a big aperture sight. And so you're not going to hit real precisely, but if you're within 5 yards toe to toe, having a shootout situation, if you bring it up and you look through that little window and put it over whatever you have to pull the trigger and hit, guess what? The bullets go pretty close to where you're looking. And I think that's something we all need to remember. I have not really heard anybody talk about that. Have you guys fussed with that?
Yeah.
Nope. That is a Roy Huntington signature technique.
Oh God, please.
So we'll have to name it something.
Please do not name it after me. It's the TV technique or something like that. I always hate that because I have the Hackathorn rip and the Ayub this and the, it's like, please don't do that to me. So, but you've
heard of the Brent Wheat bourbon pour,
and the
right?
Brent Wheat bourbon pour, there we go. But now, have you guys actually kind of experimented with that? Because I had never really experimented with that before.
Yeah.
Okay, and it worked.
Yeah, it's like cylindrical red dots on carbines and rifles. I mean, same idea, right?
Yeah.
Look through the tube and it gets you close.
That's actually true. Yeah. I remember a million years ago, I had a Daisy BB gun that had a steel tube on the top that was supposed to be a scope. It was just a tube.
I
remember those?
I was so disappointed.
Yeah.
I get it, and it has no glass.
Nothing in it. There's not even crosshairs or anything. It's just a tube. Yeah. But I was surprised that you could actually get pretty good with it, But again, using it like an aperture. So maybe we didn't invent anything. Damn. See, I thought I invented something.
Well, I'll tell you what my plan is. The Taurus TX22, we've talked many, many times how much we love that gun. It's just a great, inexpensive, it's basically a Striker 9mm that shoots 22s, and it's relatively inexpensive. They now have an optic-ready model, and Tom's got a couple. I have 0. But I want to get one of those. I think that might be my entry into the world. I'm not comfortable carrying that until I put an awful lot of rounds down range and I can feel like it truly is as instinctive as that front sight, because anybody that's been shooting as long as we have, literally you've got so many sight pictures and it is ingrained, from your earliest shooting experiences in a fight front sight. And my world revolves around a front sight, and it's hard to break that habit after so many presentations. So maybe the TX22 can help me out on that.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, I didn't have that problem because I've only been shooting for like 3 months, so I didn't have to.
Then you're a YouTube influencer, right?
I didn't have to undo the old habits. So
why do we invite him?
I don't know. Wow.
Well, I think that it's a real interesting problem, kind of, and I think we need to remember that we still are what I would call in the infancy of red dot sights, because I'll bet you next year we're going to be at the SHOT Show and somebody's going to hold up something and we're going to go, I never thought of that before. And it's just, it's going to revolutionize everything. And so, and then
Well, I want to make another important point, though. I just got into an argument recently with somebody over red dots. It's okay if you don't want to use a red dot. It's perfectly okay. The little bumps on the front, they work just fine. So we shouldn't shame those of us who choose not to carry red dots at this point, because frankly, I can do some pretty good work with them, I think. So I want to go to the future, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with what we've been doing for couple 100 years.
Well,
see, my eyes dragged me into the red dot world.
Oh yeah.
This stuff, the minute I turned 40, literally to the minute, close stuff started getting a little blurry, but more importantly in this context, slower. So the time it takes my eye to kind of focus in on closer stuff, it takes me a lot longer. Yeah. So that's kind of why the red dot works for me.
I think for me,
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, for me, it's more of a sporting use. I have hunting handguns, a Ruger 1022. I have a great Smith & Wesson Victory Model 22 with a Volkwarzen barrel on it, and they all have red dot sights. And the kind that you can dial the red dot way down to be like 2 MOA, the little teeny tiny ones. and I think they're great in the hunting field because I always have time to bring it up, find the red dot, get yourself organized, and it really has helped me, especially late in the afternoon, blind hunting. When you're kind of losing sunset time and all that, it really makes a big difference. But I took an inventory not too long ago, and all of my defensive guns, long guns, shotguns, everything, it's all iron sights. And I guess I'm like Brent. I'm just not quite comfortable enough with that transition, so it's my own fault.
Have you tried a semi-automatic yet?
By God, if you can't do it with one shot, then it don't need to be done. And don't y'all forget that. Yeah.
Well, guys, I think we've beaten this to death. It's okay. If you want a red dot, use it. If you don't want to use it, don't use it. Why can't we all just get along?
Damn, that's too nice. We need to be yelling at each other about this and stuff.
That's right.
So.
Controversy sells, right? It's the internet.
You're an idiot if you don't use it. All right.
Tom, let me just say this. Tom, you ignorant slut.
Oh, that's not going to
privileged.
buff out. Yeah.
That's a compliment, in my book.
Bye, Mom. Yeah.
Bye. Hey, guys. I love the smell of leather in the morning. There's some people that say leather and blued guns are the only things you should be shooting. Well, I won't go quite that far, but I do love leather. This is a great Mitch Rosen holster. I've got one from our friend Rob Leahy at Simply Rugged, Galco. Leather is everywhere. Well, I recently had an interesting interview with our good friend Doc Baranti, a very famous holster maker and good friend of yours, Roy. And one of the interesting segments during the podcast, and that's podcast episode 101 of the Guns Magazine podcast, I asked him about leather care, and I realized in listening to him talk, there's so much misinformation out there about leather care and what you should do and shouldn't do. So I thought it might be kind of cool that I throw it out to you guys. Okay, Tom, we're not talking about Kydex, which is plastic. Okay, we're talking about the
I
stuff
love leather.
that is real animal skin and how you take care of it.
Although I do want to point out one thing. Huffing leather is kind of like a gateway drug. I'm just saying, so be careful.
Oh, yeah.
It leads to huffing Hoppy's number 9. So
I've been doing that for
hear.
years.
I mean, it's like an escalation. It's science.
Yeah.
So just be careful.
Well, I'll get it started just real quick. A lot of folks use neat's foot oil, right? And Doc said that he uses it in his initial preparation, but he said that's a real quick way to ruin your leather because most folks use way, way, way too much, and it ends up basically oil logging, water soaking the leather, and you'll never get it back from that point. The other interesting thing he said was saddle soap.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
I'm not an expert.
Before you move on from that point?
Yeah.
No, I was curious if he said it ruins your leather. Does it ruin it in terms of making it too pliable?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that what the resulting problem was.
Right. That's what it is. They use it during the forming process, but if you come in with this holster and just start slathering it on every 2 days because you think the leather needs nourishment, it'll end up being this is form fitted. It's very rigid. After enough oil, it won't be anymore. It'll be just floppy, and there's lots of jokes there, but I won't go there. But I thought it was interesting when he said, because I've always heard, got to use neat's foot oil on your fine leather. Well, he said, if you do, very, 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 very sparingly.
Well, and I think an ironic thing is that wonderful leather smell that we all love so much.
Yeah.
Well, that's the solvents and the dyes and the treatment they use when they tan the leather. It's like not all natural leather. You're just smelling the goop that they put on it. So
Yeah, my belts don't smell all that great.
yeah,
so.
well, I have to lock my eyes now. I've made.
Hey, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, do you guys ever use the there's a few different people make it, but basically holster slick stuff where if you got a little stickiness going on the interior, like a holster glide type stuff. Share your experiences.
Leather lightning.
Down here, I get lots of humidity, so I do get in the summer months some sticky issues. Guns a little sticky coming out of the holster. curious if you guys, I've used it with success.
Absolutely, yeah. Leather Lightning by Mitch Rose, and I that's what I use.
Okay.
It comes in a little container, and you just scoop it on your finger and rub it inside. I actually did one of our videos where I kind of showed how to use it, and man, I'll tell you, it turns a holster that is not usable into something that it suddenly you can get your gun in, get your gun out, kind of snicks, but it doesn't do what neat's foot oil would do. You know, make it all mushy and everything. So
Right. Yeah.
I use regular Kiwi shoe polish on my leather holsters because, you know, it's
Really?
yeah, it's on the surface, you know. And as one leather maker told me one time, he said, "You don't have to nourish leather; it's dead."
It's dead.
Yeah, he said it doesn't need any food, okay? You know,
Nice.
he said like nourishing your hair with, you know, fancy shampoo. It's dead. It doesn't eat anymore, you know? So
Yeah.
he said anything that goes past the surface, you're basically, like what Doc says, going to mess it up. And so, you know, like neutral, there was another polish called Meltonian, which is a cream made for, like, you know, fine Corinthian leather shoes and stuff like that. I've had really good luck with that. So, but, you know, have you ever seen that? It was a internet sensation 10 or 12 years ago. It was a guy who reholstered his gun while sitting in the car, and a piece of his worn out, over neats-footed, saturated holster got into the trigger guard, and it fired his gun, and they had a good picture of the big bullet hole in his butt. But then he had a picture of his holster, and it was something that looked like your dog dragged it in.
Wow.
You know, it was
I'm
worn out and
How does
chewed
it get
up.
that? What do you do to it to make it soft enough for that little piece to interfere with the trigger?
Well, it was obviously
Yeah.
this holster had been against his sweaty, fat self, you know, because he was a kind of a burly guy with a muffin, and it was just stained and abused and should have been thrown away years before. But I don't know why they're afraid to spend money on a holster. You know, it's like you spend $800 or $1,000 on a gun. Well, spend $100 on a holster.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I
not
had-
19.
I had to laugh. Doc said that. He goes, I said, you know, criteria for selecting a holster. And he goes, just remember, before anything else, that's not the last holster you're going to ever buy. And I kind of chuckled, and he goes, but we all do it, right? This holster here is the last holster I'm going to buy. It's going to fit me, and it's going to work. And first of all, they do wear out unless you don't use them very often. Second of all, life changes, you change, your body changes. These are kind of temporary things. So we were laughing that we all have that plastic tote in the closet, you know, full of misfit holsters that were the greatest, bestest holster when we bought them, and then we suddenly realized they might not be. But going back to your point of wearing holsters out, I've actually probably seen more holsters damaged by guys. You know, guns, blued guns need to be wiped down periodically, you know, with an oily rag, prevent surface rust. But I've seen guys that wipe down their holsters with even gun oil sometimes, or neat's foot or whatever, because, you know, you got to nourish that leather. And if you're one of those people, you may be wondering how come, again, the holster or the belt is getting floppy, because there's just too much oil in this thing. The leather needs a tiny bit, as Doc explained, this is not my information. The leather needs a little bit of oil to be supple enough to work and all that, but beyond that point, it doesn't need anything. So I thought that was pretty interesting. The other point I wanted to get to was, I've always heard saddle soap. Saddle soap's critical, keeping your leather nourished and supple and clean. And Doc said, not unless you've been rolling around in a mud puddle and you just need to clean it. He said otherwise it will actually dry that little bit of oil in there out with too much use. And so he said, unless the leather is just ungodly filthy, with literal caked on mud, you really don't need to clean it either. So thought that was interesting.
Well, you know, there's some people, I remember as a cop, if you were in the rain, and we all had leather holsters, and I remember some guys, you know, they would put their holster in a low oven or something to dry it off and stuff, and that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
If your holster gets wet, you just, you know, what they actually recommend doing is put your gun in wrap it in saran wrap, and put it in the holster, and then just leave it sit on the counter and let it dry naturally.
Yep.
Because if you hurry it up, then you're in trouble. The other thing is, if you have Kydex, Kydex can be really abrasive if it gets dirty on the inside. Because think about it, what do you have when you have grit and dirt on the inside of the hard surface of a Kydex holster? You have Kydex sandpaper.
Yeah.
And so as you put your gun in and out, that's why all these paint-on finishes all get worn off. And so wipe off the inside of your Kydex holster now and again.
Yeah.
Well, that applies to leather too.
Yeah.
I mean,
But you know what, guys? To wrap this up, you know what I do to my holsters? Not much.
God only knows.
Nothing. If they get really gungy, first of all, I like them to look a little bit salty, like you've used them. But if they really start looking bad or they're not functioning 100%, they go in the box and I buy another one. So, but it's I've only had that happen with a few daily carry holsters that literally did collect sweat, over a period of years, and body oil and gun oil and all that. But again, once it gets to that point where it's not functioning properly, rather than mess around with my life, because that piece of gear can affect your presentation, things like that, just buy a new one. Save that one for a photo prop or
crazy talk.
I know it's crazy talk, but
I'm still laughing at the part where he says, buy a new one.
Wow, I'm being shouted down here. I thought we're supposed to sell product, right? That's what marketing tells us.
That's right.
No, but I mean, we all got the big tub of misfit holsters, so it doesn't hurt to add another one or give it to your kid, play with his BB gun or something, and get him started down the right path. So that's my point, but I guess your mileage may vary.
I agree.
Hey guys, I don't know if you caught on to this, but I'm a little bit of a ballistics geek.
No, we never noticed that.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I know. So I could rotate the camera here and look at the reloading smorgasbord on the other wall over there. But I'm kind of an avid reloader. I love it. But one of the things that's kind of important. One of the things that's just kind of fun.
I was going to say, let's
you
not
reload
get too
your own
serious
ammo.
Important.
I wouldn't say important, but is testing it out. So I don't know about you all, but I've done some really dopey stuff over the years for testing out hollow point projectiles for rifles and pistols, and kind of homebrewed ballistic gel solutions. So I wanted to talk about that for a little. I mean, some of them, anybody can do at home, and with just a little bit of preparation, and they kind of work.
I think that's the key overall thing here is anything short of a calibrated ballistics gel is an approximation. So the thing is, if you're testing bullets, as long as you do the same thing all along, it may not meet the FBI standards for ballistic gel, but if you have phone books of the same type and consistency and wetted the same way, then you can roughly compare this bullet to this bullet. Those results don't apply to anybody else.
Do they have to be the same zip codes
I believe
and cities?
so.
Yes.
Like for consistency?
Yes.
Or
consistency.
Oh, okay.
That's where I was going with that. As long as you're consistent, that at least gives you some kind of frame of reference. Would you agree, Tom? You're the data scientist here.
I would, and here's why. Because all bullet testing is really just a relative indicator. I mean, ballistics gel doesn't duplicate the human body. I mean, you look at the differences. Like mine is, probably closer to steel, than ballistics gelatin. So
Really?
no, but seriously, I mean, it's not. People say, "Oh, it's ballistic gelatin's an exact duplication of human flesh." Like, no, it's not. We're made of air and water and bones and all kinds of random stuff. That's moving, by the way. So it's a relative indicator, I think. It's how does this bullet and that bullet and the other one perform in identical
Exactly. And
Right.
In the 1850s, they used to use oak. And so if you were testing a new military rifle like the 45-70, they would tell you how many inches of oak it would penetrate out to 500 yards or 800 yards. And it'd be okay if you had to kill some oak.
yeah. Tom, do you want to take this or should I? So Roy, were you there for those tests or?
Well, me and Abraham Lincoln, we were out behind the White House back in those days. But yeah, actually, I read some stats about that. They were testing the Henry, which was a 44 rim fire, and at 100 yards, it would penetrate like 1.25 inches of oak. It would basically kind of bury the bullet into the oak, and it all lit their hair on fire because they're used to 45-70 penetrating 8 inches of solid oak or something. But we used to use Fells Naphtha soap, and I'm assuming we could.
I don't even know what that is.
I know it's an ancient kind of our producer Sherry. Will
I know what it
remember,
is.
I'm sure.
It's
but
for those of us that make their own laundry detergent. That's one ingredient, so that's why I know about it.
Well, we used to use that for small caliber, 22s, 25s, that kind of stuff. And if you find some old gun magazines, you'll see blocks of Fells Naphtha soap with looks like a little meteor crater in it, where because they held together. We used to use Duck Seal. Yeah. Remember that goopy? We used to call it monkey crap. I don't know why we call it, because I guess it looked like monkey crap. So, but Duck Seal, which back to what Tom was saying and what you were saying, it does have a certain consistency, and so it does let you see, well, if I shoot it with a hollow point round and a full metal jacket round, lets you see the difference between the two, but it may not have any bearing on reality, you know. So,
well, when I first started reloading, I used to save up. Remember when newspapers used to exist? I used to save up newspapers, and you'd have to save them for months, to get enough to do anything useful with a decent caliber. And I'd pile them up in a some kind of plastic bin, stacked up straight. And then you fill it with water for a day, and then you drain it out, and you haul this 900 pounds of soggy newspaper out to a range or a field somewhere, and you'd shoot it about 5 times, and then it's all wet trash.
It's paper mache.
It did.
Yeah.
It is paper mache. It made the bullets expand, and I don't know what the heck it did for me, but it was entertaining, maybe?
Well, I remember I've seen gun writers that soft pine. There was a phase where everybody was using, soft pine 2x4s, and it penetrated 8 2x4s. Well, if you're shooting wall studs, I guess, it's a deadly round.
I suppose, though, it's like if you shoot a pine 2x4s with whatever caliber you're carrying and the bullets don't go in, then at least you've just done some scientific testing, and you should know that I should probably not use this ammunition. We used to use gallon jugs, old gallon plastic milk jug. Before that, the half-gallon, wax paper jugs. And I don't know what we proved, because it was always fun. You shoot them with a high-velocity rifle, and it's like everybody gets wet, and it's great fun. And then you spend the next half hour trying to find the bullets, And I always enjoyed if you set up like 20 of them in a row and shoot it with a 9mm ball load. It would make a 36 caliber hole through just about all of them. And then I liked it because the first one that the bullet went through would sit there and go glug, 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 glug. And so we would that's not very good. Is it supposed to do that?
Well, the most spectacular test medium has to be my favorite. I don't do it very often, but watermelons. Oh, yeah.
Watermelon. Yes.
Violent red
because
spray.
Science.
It's the best.
We had... when it was the assault weapons ban was happening, and the media came down, and of course we had kind of a goofball police chief at the time, and so he invited them down to show them the terrible destructive power of these assault weapons. And so they had watermelons, and so somebody shot a watermelon with a 55 grain 223, and it basically made a hole through it. The range guy, we were all like there going, told you,
The destructive power.
Yeah. So finally, I swear to you, they got an 870 and put a slug in it, and so they show the reporter going bang, and then right, and we all just shook our heads and went back inside. It's like, really.
Well, Tom, I
don't know where I got.
You make calibrated ballistics gel, don't you? Do you use lime or orange, and do you put the little fruit cocktails in it? How do you keep them suspended?
I kind of like the bubble gum smell myself, I used some of those new gun cleaners. You know, they all smell like lavender and bubble gum. And, you know, actually, I don't. I don't make my own gel because it's a royal
It is.
pain. It's a royal pain, not just to make, but to transport and use. I mean, it gets to be 170 degrees here in the summer, so you can have it outside for about 3 minutes before it's useless.
We used to.
I use clear ballistics gel.
That's
so
great
it's
stuff.
it's reusable, and it's a slightly more slippery, for lack of a better word, than true animal-based ballistics gel. So you'll get another inch or so of penetration than you might with, you know, normal gel, but you can remelt it, you can strain it, you can reform it, you know, so it's handy stuff for the home reloader or tinkerer.
Or
That's something people don't know about that ballistic gel, though, is that it is animal based. It's like, what is it, hooves and, you know, horns and ground
Lips.
up stuff like that. And you're right.
I think it's chickens.
And
I think
chickens.
it's chickens, Roy.
Is it chickens? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
real chickens.
Yeah.
But we used to make it at the range, and you're right, it was a royal pain to do because you have to keep it at a certain temperature, and it goes bad if you leave it out, you know, for a couple of days. But I think what I was surprised at is that we would when we were done with it, we would throw it out back behind the berm in the range, and the animals would eat it. Because it was, because it was like all natural.
Cannibals.
Yeah, cannibals. It was all natural.
hey guys,
so.
have you ever used the Chinese method where you line up political prisoners? Never mind. Just had to throw that in there.
It's the new Democrats' way. Huh? Is that, yeah. All right. I think we better stop before we
On
get
that note.
arrested.
Well, that was what I hope was another great episode of the Gun Cranks. And if you like what we're doing, please, please, please subscribe to us down here. And also maybe share some stuff on your social media. Let the world know that you like the Gun Cranks. And while you're at it, make sure you check out gunsmagazine.com, americanhandgunner.com, americancop.com, and the Guns Magazine podcast on all your favorite podcast directories. So, we'll get together in another 2 weeks or so and have some more stuff. We'll probably be censored over that whole political prisoner thing, but we're not suggesting you do that. So, guys, any important parting last words here?
I'm not going there.
I don't have anything important to say.
Okay. Well, on behalf of the Gun Cranks, thanks, and we'll see you next time.